Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another episode of Conqueror's Blade. So, today, Pike Militia. I've been quite enjoying these guys for quite a while. Well, I would do if I could find them. Where are they? Here they are. I've got them max leveled now. I've kind of been using them for the past couple of months because they seem to be a really quite a decent unit. A couple of observations that I would make about them. One, obviously they're dirt cheap. They're a 2-star unit. If we go and look at them in the actual tech tree, you'll see that they're really easy to get to. You know, they're like 1500 on or something like that. It's one of the first units you'll be unlocking, and it's going to be one of the few early units that you're going to want to be keeping effectively. You know, you don't unlock Domain Pikemen, or you know, you don't unlock Sword Militia and Spear Militia, and it'd be one that you really continue with into the later game. Pike Militia is one of those that, for their cost, they're really effective, and they can take on higher tier units. And even though they don't always win, they can actually give them a fair rival. So they're well worth keeping. Obviously cheap. They have a leadership cost of I think of 110. Yep, they do. And obviously they level out at 14 in terms of the max level. So we head back to the barracks and actually find my example. You can see what unit tech tree I've been going down on the veterancy line. So you really want to be going down this middle one. For a few reasons, pretty much not that much of use along the line until we start to get to the end. You know, all these things are nice. The movement speed one's actually quite nice just from a usability point of view. But increase brace weapon armor penetration by 30%. Increase brace weapon damage by 15%. Because you're going to want to be using these guys bracing. They suck without the bracing. And then there's the two other. Increase the number of enemies each soldier can strike by 1. That's a big one. And brace stuns units. So if an enemy unit or hero touches the brace, then they get stunned as well as damaged. And that's kind of what this unit relies upon. Now, I'm not making them out to be absolutely super duper amazing. I find you can I tend to comfortably get sort of 20 to 40 kills with them in a match. But for such a low tier unit, I find that's pretty decent. I think one thing I've really been lacking, and I've been really trying to get, but I seem to have been really unlucky with, I've got no Pike-specific doctrines. I've had Javelin doctrines, I've had, you know, doctrines for swords, doctrines for health doctrines, and almost everything, all of those types of blue doctrines, but I've never had anything that's going to buff the bracing damage or anything like that, which is what I really, really want for these guys, because I think that would make a huge difference to the damage output. You know, if you put something on them like I've got on, say, my Spear Sergeant, say this Breakthrough Doctrine, increase damage dealt to units by 95, that would make a huge difference to the way these Pike Militia actually play out. So I think that would be something that would make a real big difference to them. I think then they would become actually pretty insanely powerful. Obviously, when they embrace mode, they are anti-cav, so they will stop cav within reason. They're not, obviously they're quite a weak unit, so if you get something like monastics charging at them, then I think you will maybe struggle. But you'll still do a decent amount of damage before they actually die. So yeah, it's really, that is all there is to say about them. I like them. They're a cheap unit, they have very low kit cost, and they will do a couple of hundred damage per tick to anything that walks near them. And of course they get that little bit of continual ticking stun that goes on when enemies walk into them, which hopefully you'll see. They do of course get overwhelmed if too many enemies come at them, pretty much like most units. But anyway, let's just actually hop into a few battles, kind of take a look at them. No amazing gameplay here, as I say, I'm not the best at using them. But still, a decent unit, I think, for the leadership cost and the kit cost. For our first battle, we are obviously in on a siege on Desert Fortress. And I've just been killed, and I noticed we've actually managed to lose control of the supply point. You can see that there on the map. Someone's actually just handily pinged that and spawned in with my Pike Militia, and this is what I'm thinking about. So I immediately hit them into F3, into that sort of little diamondy wedge shape formation. That tends to be what I dominantly run them in. That gets them in the closest tight-knit formation. So that's tend to be what I use them in. And as you see, I just push them into a unit and basically knock on my brace. And as we turn on the brace, it basically starts to cause stun damage. And you can see against these Spear Sergeants here, I'm not hitting hard. You know, what my average damage is 170 is probably there. There's a couple of 180s, occasionally a couple of 100, 300 maybe at most. They don't hit hard. That's why I said about the doctrines. You know, if you've got that plus 95 damage doctrine, because that's a base damage increase, then that would make a huge difference, because instead of ticking at 200, it'd be ticking at 300. It'd be like a third damage increase. So yeah, that's really how they excel, and you can see the stunning they cause. For example, on that little Spear Sergeant model there, he was in contact with so many of the pikes, it was just continually being stunned. And even though I'm only doing a very low amount of damage to him, it makes it, one, very easy for allies to kill him, and it makes him much more vulnerable to things like archers and arrows and stuff, because he's not blocking, because he's actually in a state of stun. And it also means he can't push through, because he's, well, stunned. So these guys tend to work just in terms of contact, basically. When they are in brace, anything that touches that pike will take basically like a tick of damage, 170, 200, 300 damage as just a tick. And they will take that basically all the time until the Pike Militia are dead. Now, obviously, the Pike Militia aren't very strong. So, as you can see, like on the front line here, we are getting continual ticks now against decent quality units as well. And you see, we are pushing people back, but we are taking casualties. Because when a hero comes in and goes for, a glaive comes in and does a top-down hit or something, odds are it will just kill almost outright the Pike Militia. So that's their biggest weakness. They're not very, strong. The biggest weakness is that they're weak. But you can see we're still just racking up kills, because anything that touches them is taking damage, and over time that stun and damage effect just starts to cause kills. Unfortunately, we get a bit of a good run, but then unfortunately the Trebs rock on in and really finish our unit off, and that spells the end of our Pike Militia. But we held up a vastly numerically superior force there for a reasonable amount of time, and managed to secure quite a few kills along the way for a dead cheap unit that's only 110 leadership, and basically has very, very small amount of kit replenishment costs. So that's why I almost always like running with Pike Militia in my groups, because they're such a nice sort of basic little unit to run with. Anyway, let's hop into another battle and sort of see how we get on in that one. Another siege battle in this event, and we are just about to start pushing up the walls. We haven't yet captured A, but a lot of our team is starting to sort of mount up on the walls and starting to secure a bit of a position, so it's kind of only a matter of time before A actually falls to us. So I start to push along. My plan was to just push along with my Pike Militia, just because they're a cheap unit, easy. I like bringing them at the start of the battle when you never know if you're going to get trebbed or there's artillery around and stuff like that. But then as I'm coming along to push along to A, I see there's kind of quite a push starting to come up to these stairs. So I quickly pull myself back, try and form up a bit of a line and use it to block these guys and protect our archers there. As you can see, kind of against these spear militia, they're not a massive problem for us, and we actually get some slightly higher ticks at times. And then we get these higher tier Imperial Pikes actually sort of push up to kind of assist us as well. And then, sort of between ours and those Imperial Pikes helped, they start to push down the stairs. I don't like taking Pike Militia on stairs, they don't seem to work very well. But then I was going to pull away, and then there was an even bigger enemy push came, and I managed to clip myself in on this corner like this. You see where the enemy can't easily get to me, yet by walking up the stairs they're taking continuous damage, and look at the amount of hits we're getting. Not getting much in the way of kills, but we are stopping 60 enemy units or something there, making them stand there in the corner because they're being continually hit. And now, because they've been stuck there so long, the damage and the kills are starting to come in. Unfortunately, we get hit by a bit of a friendly Treb there. I know I could have pulled back, but for me it was worth the risk to hold them at that corner, because by holding them at the corner, that's one of the most useful things. And look, it's enabling our archers, by keeping them here, our archers are able to keep up that barrage of fire into the back of the enemy units. It's not always about getting the kills with these guys, but a lot of it also comes down to just the ability to hold a position and sort of limit the enemy's movements by the fact that they know they can't just run headlong into a group of pikes, because it will cost them a lot of casualties, or they'll actually get killed. So we were pretty much able to stop that entire stair push, and a good chunk of that was in thanks to that Pike Militia. So they are a really effective unit, particularly when you get them on corners in that sort of situation, where you can sort of box them in and make an enemy run past you, because then you can really start to rack up that damage quite quickly. One area I kind of find they struggle a lot more is in field battles. Kind of the much more open terrain, I tend to find doesn't really lend itself to them quite so much, because they can kind of quite much more easily be outflanked. If you stick them on a narrow wall or something like that, people have to try and fight through them, and that enables them to kind of apply their damage and that stun effect. But when you're kind of out in the open, you kind of get outflanked a little bit more, or that they sort of turn up in dribs and dabs and I end up getting a bit ahead of them and things like that, in a way that other units I find are a bit more versatile in that way. But they can work. For example, this spear hero here, look, he got a little bit too far forwards of his main unit, so I was able to lock him down as the poleaxe, and then he just gets basically a continual stunning damage from the Pike Militia as well, so he goes down pretty quickly. And then his poor little spear militia actually just turn up after him, and just end up running basically into a pike wall and then just slowly get killed off. chase down and manage to get a few others. So they can work still pretty well, but by and large, yeah, not so amazing, for me at least, in field battles. Obviously, they're very good in an anti-cav role. Like, I wish I'd been on the A point then, because I would have been able to stop that massive cav charge that obviously killed a lot of our units there. But unfortunately, I wasn't in the right place. So I come in. Initially, I was thinking about getting the interrupts. And there's a lot of cavalry kicking around. I was also trying to think about these unit of spearmen. Those cavalry actually come in. They don't actually charge. If they had side charged me then, I think that would have been a lot more effective, but they didn't. And then sort of between us, there's that longsword, which is able to eliminate that unit of spear guard. Because even against the unit of spear guard, if you get your Pike Militia set up, they'll still apply that continual ticking damage to them, even if they're in that like circle formation or they're in a line or something like that. So they can be quite effective. So after that little bit on point A, I thought, right, I've taken quite a lot of damage, but not that many unit deaths, which is kind of surprising actually. So I pull back, get on the supply point, get a little bit of healing in. Let's get this unit back up to health before I take them back into combat, because I thought I was trying to have a decent game with them, because I was trying to get some good footage for this. But in fact, I just kind of proved half the problems. But anyway, they're healing up, and I'm thinking about where I'm going to go next. Kind of looking at the two, I saw a flick on and start to be captured, but I think it was just one hero on his horse. So I thought, oh, well, there's enough friendlies there, I didn't need to worry about that. So instead, I'm thinking about coming onto the supply point, trying to hold B. I noticed we're starting to get a little bit of cap going on the enemy point, which is good for us. And start to think about pushing up. Got to be really careful of enemy ranged. Remember, these guys have no shields and quite a low amount of health and little armor. So when you start to come up against a group of archers, you'll find that more than likely they'll actually be able to just kill you. Unless they're really low tier archers, they'll be able to kill you before you can even reach them. Because these guys just take such tremendous amounts of range damage. The ultimate counter to Pike Militia is ranged. So, I saw if you watched, then that didn't really want to push into that point. So I was kind of hovering back around point C, particularly after we'd lost B. But then I noticed we also lost A, which really sort of wasn't ideal for us. So I'm thinking about, well, I'm going to have to start pushing back down here. I noticed we stopped to recapture it as I kind of pushed through this point. And actually, it looks like quite a bit of our team turned up there. So then I was thinking, well, maybe we can take these archers, because to see these archers here, I was thinking if I can get them close enough to the wall, I can then push in. You know, i.e. I was using an obstacle to block them, but their hero controlling them does exactly the right thing and pulls them back. And so then I'm kind of now spread out in a line. So I'm trying to reform and then a cav charge. So I quickly stick them into brace position. And initially it is effective. We do stop a good chunk of the cav, but we don't kill enough of it. It's obviously a higher tier cav. It's got a skin on, so I can't quite work out what it is. And then another unit of cav turns up. And you can see the sort of hits we're getting. We're sort of hitting for 1,000 when they run into those pikes. But there's a lot of them, and I'm pretty spread out now. And because I'm in a line, the cav can pretty easily get round me. Is what I absolutely should have done was, well, be a bit more prepared. I should have kept the unit as a closer knit blob. If there had been a blob and a blob of 32 when the enemy cav had run into them, they would have been a lot more effective. And then as you can see, they weren't quite facing the right direction, so I had to kind of reposition them. I just managed to get them to reposition before they died, and they did get a lot of damage in there as they die, but unfortunately they then just kind of get killed off. So that for me really kind of sums up my experience with the Pike Militia. For me, a really good unit, very cheap, and one of the few 2-star units that I actively enjoy taking. I don't find I get, I'm not getting games with hundreds of kills in them, although I have heard reports and seen where people have done. So there's clearly something I'm doing wrong to not fully take advantage of them. But I think for their leadership cost and the unit kit cost, I think they're an excellent unit to be sort of adding into your roster, particularly once you get them elited, because you get that stun effect, and that stun effect makes a huge difference to how effective they are. So you really need to be getting them up to level 13, 14, 14 being the max level. Even with the unit grind as it is kind of now, it's tougher, but getting to 14 is not impossible. It shouldn't take you too long, particularly if you can take advantage of unit experience cards and stuff like that. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video so far. If you have, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel for a load more Conqueror's Blade content, and I shall see you guys all on the next video.